welcome back. We are excited to sail into another episode of MB2 Underground. Don't bow out just yet. I'm just kidding. That's all the sail puns I have. Welcome back. My name is Sarah Kiefer.
And I'm Jonathan Tyrock, better known as JT. What's up, Sarah?
I'm having a day, but I'm good and I'm ready because I'm excited about our guest today. This guest has been somebody I have been acquainted with since the day I started at MB2.
OG,
9 years ago.
OG doesn't even describe who we have sitting across the table from us. So,
Then what does?
I mean, I would say pretty amazing, awesome. She's been somebody who I, like you, when I got here, was one of the first partners I met. And, of course, we've got some ties down to College Station, et cetera, et cetera. But,
et cetera, et cetera.
Yep. But I'm excited, too, because I haven't seen our guest in a while. And so it's fun to get to catch up. And I know she's got some really cool experience, not only with old school MB2, because she started here in 2011. Sailing. Well, of course.
I just got to make that ties back.
We'll come back. We'll get to sailing.
Otherwise, I'm just talking about sailing and nobody gets it.
Which would be kind of funny.
Okay.
I mean, all right. I digress. This person, lovely partner of ours, came to MB2 in 2011 or found MB2 in 2011, which I'd love to find out about. But has seen a lot and seen the organization grow and change, and has, I assume, taken her experience from MB2 and put it elsewhere to work in her life. So I'm really excited to hear about that and for everybody else to get to hear about it as well. So without any further delay, I'd like to welcome Dr. Ashley DeMarco.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hey, Doc. Long time no see.
I know.
We were just talking about, I think the last time I saw you was in 2017. That was when we did Maui, right?
That is crazy. Yes. What a trip that was.
Popped out a whole litter of children since then.
That is also
Is that
true.
how that works?
Well, I think anything after 2 is a litter.
For me, anything after any of them is. But how is the family?
Everyone's great. The twins are actually 18 months old today.
Stop.
Oh, no kidding.
Today, 18 months old. So.
Oh my gosh, twins.
So
That's
you've
insane.
got twin 18-month-olds, you've got a 3-year-old and
a 7-year-old. Yep.
Wow. That's insane. And you guys moved to this area recently.
Right. About a little bit. We moved here earlier than we thought because we were having a little bit of issues with the twins. So we were going to move more towards right before school started. So into August of 2023. But we ended up moving in the middle of the summer so we could have the twins here. We didn't want to accidentally have the twins in Beaumont just because the healthcare is so much better in this area. We have a lot more specialists and all that. So.
Yeah, and you're trying to set up your life in your car wash.
That's right. So
the Dino car wash.
That's right.
Is that right?
That's right. Dino Clean.
Dino Clean.
Dinosaur themed
Shout
car
out.
wash.
We'll link it in the episode notes.
That's right. That's what we do. Okay, so I want to start from the beginning.
Sure.
Because I assume this is probably a pretty interesting story because back in 2011, MB2 wasn't MB2 today.
No.
People weren't getting carpet bombed with mailers and, see all the cool stuff that we do. So how in the world did you find MB2?
And was it MB2 then?
No, it was called Dental Professionals of Texas.
The most OGs of OGs, yes.
And did you find it or did they find you?
So let me tell you, this is a crazy story, but the way that our dental school was set up at Baylor, then now Texas A&M, was really a blessing that I feel like classes since they've redone the school don't get that we did, is that we shared a lab. When you were a third year, you went into a lab and there was 2 different sides. So we shared a lab with the fourth years. So when you were third year, you shared with the fourth years and then you stayed on your side. And then when the fourth years graduated, the new third year class came in and then you were the fourth years, if that makes sense. So the benefit of that is we really not only just knew our class well, but we got to know the class above and below us super well.
That is cool.
So when it was time to look for jobs, I was like, man, everybody I know and like has had like 3 or 4 jobs in 1 year. That's scary. I don't want to do that. That doesn't sound fun. That's not what you in your mind signed up for as your first job out. So noticing that the only guys at the time that really had stayed at least a year with where they were was all the dental professional of Texas guys. And so I was like, I don't want to go work for someone where I'm there 2 months and it just doesn't work out.
Yeah.
I really want to work for that DPTX company. And
What a mouthful.
I know.
DPTX.
That's what we called it.
I love it.
But so I applied and I really didn't hear anything. So I just kept being persistent. And any contact I knew, I kept saying, I really want to interview. So finally, I think Dr. V is like, who is this girl? I don't know. And it was kind of shady. It was like, hey, meet at this one office location. We're going to do your interview.
Like, I'm either interviewing or getting kidnapped.
Yeah, I didn't really know. So, of course, I come dressed up. And I sit in the waiting room. I go to the front and I check in, and they're like, "Oh, you're the doctor that's here for." Okay, just sit down. They're not here. They'll be here in a little bit.
Where was it?
McKinney.
Okay.
And so, Dr. Dardano's practice, and
Okay.
it had just opened. I think it hadn't been there long. Well, it was lunchtime. There was no patients, and I want to say the lights were off in the back. I'm not really sure what was going on, but. They call me. It was the weirdest interview ever. Like, I don't know why I was so dedicated to wanting to work for this, because anybody else would say, wait, there's some red flags. Like, what is going on?
I've counted 6 so far, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
hey, but a very positive, right? These guys, hey, there's some reason that all these guys still
Right.
have their gigs. So
right.
that's
And they liked it.
Yeah.
And any one of them that I knew, one, it was people I really liked and really thought highly of their impression of wherever they were working. And 2, they were all staying on. It wasn't just a 1-year thing. They were all working, So finally, Dr. V and Dr. Tang show up. They come in the back door and then open a door. They're wearing like T-shirts and jeans and stuff. And
On brand.
they're like, Ashley. And I was like, oh, I guess that's them. I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't them.
Let's follow these men into the back
Yeah. So I go into the dark back.
with the flickering lights.
Right.
And yes.
And sit in a dental operatory. I am literally sitting in the dental chair. Like, this is so awkward. I don't really know what's going on here. And Dr. Tang is sitting in the chair as if he was going to treat me. I'm not really sure. And Dr. V got in another chair and was a roller chair rolling up and down the hallway while Dr. Tang interviews me. So
that's
Some
amazing.
things never change.
that's right. Some things never change. So I leave the interview thinking, well, I mean, I think it went good. I don't really know. That was really, really, really weird, but I still want to work for them. And I want to say that was in April. And not many people, I just don't think at that exact moment in time, MB2 really needed a lot of new associates. There was some practices in the works, but there wasn't too much going on where they had need. And like I said, they were retaining the doctors. So it wasn't like other people were leaving. So positions weren't really open. There was maybe a few, but no one from my class yet had really gotten a position with MB2. And I'm like, I don't want to accept anywhere else because I really want to work for them. And again, I can't tell you why I was so stuck on this other than the people that had worked there. So I just waited and I didn't accept other jobs. I kind of waited, and it was
And you weren't hearing from them.
no. And then it was graduation day. I was in the car. My mom's like, I think you may need to accept another offer. Are you going to have a job? What are you going to do? So I texted Dr. V and I said, listen, I really want to work for you guys. I know you haven't offered me yet, but I really think you should.
But I accept.
And I did. I really did say that. And about a couple hours later, he goes, well, welcome to the team. I really don't have a position for you, but if you're going to continue to text me and ask about your job, you work
that's
here.
awesome.
Yeah. So he said, you work here. He said, I'll figure something out. I'll be with you shortly. And I started, that was, I want to say May 10th, and I started June 1st. It was my first day.
Amazing.
And my summer gig with, DPTX was I filled in throughout DFW when any doctor wanted a vacation during the summertime, which, a lot of people do.
Sure.
I filled in that summer everywhere. So I was all over the place.
Oh, that's
What a
cool.
cool experience.
I loved it. It was
Golly,
nice.
so that persistence certainly paid off.
Right.
I like
and
that better. I was like, you bullied your way into MB2. And he's like, no. It's called persistence.
yeah, it's polite persistence, right?
No, but I love it. Like having such a clear vision of what you want and being willing to sacrifice to get it. That's awesome.
Well, and taking the risk and hustling,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which I think that really kind of, you parlayed that into your office or offices now.
Yeah, you parlayed it.
How did you go from traveling in DFW to getting down to Galveston?
Well, so what ended up happening was at the time, Dr. Schwan was the doctor who I kind of filled in for the most. And so I really worked with him a ton, and he had Dr. Parks working at his Fort Worth location. And
Shout out, Dr.
I
Parks.
know Dr. Parks is another OG, one of my favorites. But so he basically said, well, when Dr. Parks' practice is open down in the Houston area, I'm originally from kind of Houston-ish. Baytown was going to be the first office. You'll go down and you'll be an associate there. So that was kind of the plan. Stay here in DFW while we have somewhere for you to be. And then as soon as the Sage is open, you can go down there.
So they were in the middle of building these practices at the time.
Yeah. And this is crazy to think, because I don't know that most people would do this now, but the idea was with the Sages, instead, let's not just open one and be, one dental practice is just too easy.
Yeah.
They
obviously.
opened 4 at the exact same time.
Oh my
They
gosh.
all opened within 2 months of each other.
I didn't know that.
All the Sages, Deer Park, Pasadena, Baytown.
I'm going to guess
Yeah.
JC would probably have a stroke if we did that today.
Yeah, that was the plan. And so I was the first associate hired, and they were like, we don't really know, because we need at least 2 doctors in office. How are we going to do this?
Yeah.
So all my friends from dental school that lived in that Houston area, I was contributing to people having multiple jobs at this point, because I convinced them all to quit their jobs. And for a year we all got to work together. It was all my
That's
friends that we
cool.
had just graduated with. So
That's
we had
such a cool
great
experience.
time.
So how did it work back then before we get to like you being an owner, or maybe you can parlay it. Golly. It's Vegas on the mind. I've got a trip coming up.
Is that what parlay means?
Well, parlays when you like compound a bet, basically.
I
or
thought it
you're
was like when you
compounding
wanted to
something.
talk to the captain of the ship. I thought it was like a sail pun
That's
on a pirate ship. You say parlay and then you get to talk.
I
Anyway.
think they do that in the Pirates of the Caribbean. We'll have to look into that.
Okay.
To be fair, I know about sailing, but I don't know a lot about pirates.
I think that was more like pirate. I think that's more like pirate code or something.
Okay.
How did it work for you to get your own office? So we were here, DFW, traveling provider, go down with Dr. Parks. How do you get your own office, or how did it work back then?
Well, I think kind of what happened was just because I knew a lot of the doctors that then were onboarded to help staff the Sages, I sort of appointed myself lead doctor. And so I
On
was
brand.
used
I
to-
love it.
I was used to Dr. Parks probably felt like he didn't have a lot of say in things because I just did it for him. But no, I feel like a little bit of it was that I was like, I want to do this. I think this would be fun. And at some point it just kind of came about, hey, do you want to become a operating partner with MB2? At the time, still DPTX. And
what year was that?
That was 2012.
Okay, so pretty quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, the way that we used to do things was we looked at different areas, and you kind of grew, or if you wanted to stay with MB2, you kind of had to go with that area. So they were like, look, we're looking to expand in Texarkana, Abilene, or Beaumont. And so which would you like? And I was like, well,
You've got your selection.
yeah, a lot of good options. I had no ties to any of them except for my sort of tie. My mom did grow up in Beaumont. So
Okay.
I was like,
Oh, cool.
my grandparents lived there, and we would go and visit in the summer. So I wasn't super familiar with Beaumont. And if you've lived in a big city, going to these tertiary markets at first, you're like, I don't know. I remember the thing I was stuck on was there wasn't even a Panera Bread there, which I don't know why that was so big to me at the time. But shortly thereafter, thank goodness, one opened. But it seemed like a little bit of a sacrifice just because I wasn't ever, I grew up in Houston, lived in Dallas. I'd never lived in a city like that. But so I said, let's do Beaumont. And we went down and did a site search and looked for a location and kind of found what we thought was the perfect location.
Well, and you grew that into multiple locations. So you didn't open all of them at the same time?
No, we did not do a stage.
Probably a good lesson to learn.
No, it was, I think the Beaumont location was open a little over a year before I was really ready to even move on. No one pushed it, but there was a lot of growth going on in dentistry at the time. So it seemed like even, other partners in MB2 had grown multiple offices, and I just felt like, wow, I had this monster practice in Beaumont, and it was so time consuming. I really couldn't imagine taking on something else. So it
Yeah.
took me a little bit to warm up to it. But then I you get systems in play and things running, and I felt a little bit better about it. So in 2015, we actually opened the Galveston office, which Dr. Davis now owns.
Cool.
I thought that would be I love the ocean beach sailing. So it seemed like a wonderful idea. And it's not that it was a bad idea, but if you're trying to serve and have your practices be where they can help each other out, if you need staff to go to one, it was too far. So it didn't really actually make sense.
What's that distance?
Well, it may be only about 60 miles. The problem is that it involves either a ferry ride or going all the way around Houston. So you just really, there's a peninsula and an island in your way. So
Inconvenient
it
at best.
varies. And it's very, very inconvenient. So that being said, we, Dr. Davis ended up buying that practice from me, and then she opened her second location right in that same area. So now that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And then we, in 2016, opened Port Arthur. That was really close to the Galveston opening. The Port Arthur was actually slated to open well before Galveston, which, again, makes a lot more sense because it's close to Beaumont. But we had, of course, it was a new development, and they had, like, phase requirements. And Hobby Lobby came in, and Hobby Lobby said, Hobby Lobby was supposed to be phase 3, and we were supposed to be phase 1. They said the only way they were going is if they were phase 1. So they were so much bigger than we were.
They DeMarco'd you.
Yeah.
You got DeMarco.
I did. I really did. So we got pushed down the line about, I don't know, it was maybe like 15 months or something.
Oh,
wow. It was a good, but it is what it is. We're still in the spot we want.
Yeah. I mean, not a bad thing to have Hobby Lobby, big anchor there.
Yeah.
At least beforehand to bring people in. How did you grow your office? You said you have a monster office. How were you able to grow it? I mean, you're a hustler, so there has to be some sort of like story behind what you did. Yeah.
I mean, it was just a lot. I want to say that it was a lot of ignorance. I was super young and I had no other responsibilities. So why not work all the time? I had Dr. Tigas come down, and I don't know if you guys know this, but we went to high school together. So we've been friends.
I did not know that.
Yeah. That's cool.
So when we moved down there, it was good that there was nothing to do in Beaumont because we just focused on our practice.
Yeah.
But I would say there is a lot of things that go into the secret sauce that made that practice what it was. It was a big location. It was a great. It's on a really busy road in Beaumont, and at the time we didn't have a ton of competition. We were in a tertiary market that not a lot of other groups were there. All the dentists that are there, and still today this remains true, are older dentists that are kind of close to retiring or only work a few days a week. So we just had a really optimal market, and I think one thing that really helped in that area is there was only one orthodontist that served that area. So we learned really quickly on that we needed to offer ortho. We didn't for probably the first year.
Yeah.
And then we said, man, this is a true need. And it became a huge part of our practice. So we just worked on a lot of marketing. We were the face of Beaumont. Everybody, I mean, our faces and logo were on billboards, on the radio. I mean, we did it all. We went to event after event. I mean, there was nothing we wouldn't do or say no to. So,
oh my gosh, I love it.
Tikas even, they wouldn't have, this is crazy. I don't know why they did this, but there was a talk show that it was a sports talk show that was completely in Spanish. And they would have him, they would say it was him. They didn't actually have him. They wanted to say it was him weighing in on these sports topics.
Wait.
That's
funny. And but you wouldn't see him. It was just like a talk show, a radio talk show.
But it wasn't him.
It was not him. But they wanted our approval to like say it was him. And we would, I mean,
he was such a local celebrity.
Oh, he was. That was the thing.
That's incredible.
And they wanted, because he couldn't make a lot of the times they wanted to do this. So they wanted to film when they wanted to. And they would send it over to us. And he just had to approve that it was okay to air.
A good representation.
And we would, I mean, it was so funny. We loved their intros because, I mean, no one made him feel more important than Victor Diaz. That was the intro.
Such a sports intro,
Oh,
too.
yeah. It was great. So he's like, I have a real hype intro. I love this. He's like, when I walk in the office, I need you guys to all mimic this exact
This
thing.
is my walk
We,
out
we need
song.
intros like that for the podcast,
Oh,
right?
God, no. I do think it is an interesting origin story because I remember joining MB2 in 2016, and that was one of the strategies and the trends that we saw of growth was tertiary markets. It wasn't going into like the big markets like Dallas and trying to build and grow a dental practice. It was, like you said, it was what, Beaumont, Texarkana, and Abilene were your options. And that's what it seemed like Dr. V had originally set his sights on, which is, I think, something that helped, set him up for success and really set him apart from other competitors that were trying to be in these areas that would maybe draw, more providers in, but the patient competition would have been so hard.
Right. And we were going to areas that had a true need. That is kind of, and that still remains true. There's definitely more competition now than at, 15 years ago, but it's still less than, these big cities. A lot of times you graduate from dental school and you don't want to leave where you're at. So everybody wants to be right on top of each other. And unfortunately, there's need in these markets. And those are the practices that seem to do well because we're not competing with everyone.
No, they are. They absolutely are. With the amount of conversations that we have with doctors, prospective partners in big markets versus, secondary or tertiary markets, it's pretty impressive to see the folks that started out like you did in a tertiary or secondary market and really built a practice. I mean, they are monster practices, very, very certainly ingrained in the communities, but also very successful by all, financial and operational metrics. Whereas the folks that we see that are in these concentrated, heavy metro markets, they're, successful too, but they're having to hustle and do a lot more for the same, if not less. So that's still absolutely true today.
Yeah, I think another thing that's interesting that we noticed later on is that maybe this is a little bit Southeast Texas specific, but there's a lot of plant workers, and our patients are plant workers, a lot of them. I mean, I think there's some statistic. It's about 65% of the households in that whole area have someone related to a plant. So It employs a lot of the area, and they're blue-collar workers that work lots of hours, so their incomes are really high because of all the overtime they get.
Yeah.
They have great insurance plans. The cost of living is low. So for us as providers, we don't have a hard time getting them to do their work because they have disposable income.
Mm-hmm.
One of my associates that's still with MB2, Drew Cummings, he always tells me, he says, man, I didn't realize how much of a difference that makes because he moved to the middle of Austin. He goes, no one can afford anything here.
Yep.
He's like, he goes, it's just crazy the difference because the disposable income just isn't there.
Yeah.
You're spending it on rent or just general living, cost of living.
Right.
Okay. 2011, 2012, opened up offices. You've been in a unique situation because you've been with MB2 since the first time we recapitalized. Now we've gone through two more.
Mm-hmm.
What has that experience been like? Maybe describe for the listeners somebody who's been here from, I'll call it, just about day one and going through each of those transactions. Like how has that impacted you, or what was that experience? What's that experience been like?
Well, it's been really neat. I think the reality is at first you're kind of like, what is this gonna work?
Yeah.
Are they real? Is this for real? I remember the first time we kind of brought it up. Well, I should say actually the first thing that happened that was really different for us is that most of the people at the time that I was an owner with MB2, it was very organic and growth, just like me. It usually was an associate that really liked the company and knew we were going to stay. And they would say, hey, you want to be an owner? Come on, let's get you going with some practices. So that is
owner transitions.
That's right.
Oh.
And at the time we had senior partners and all that. So you had a direct mentor, if you will, that was going to help you. I mean, it really made a lot of sense, and it felt like a lot less risk than going out on your own and that kind of thing. So that So that sort of started to change, I would say around 2016-ish. And that's when the first people I met, and some of my best friends to this day, Justin Crockett, is when Justin Puckett introduced them to us and said, hey, we should buy some practices that already exist. And we, at first, I remember talking to Dr. Parks about this. It was like, why? We build new, we didn't want to do that.
We don't do that here.
We don't do that here. You can't sit with us. But they were all, we were used to new practices. And at the time, everyone was young too, by the way. There was a point where at the very beginning, I think if Dr. V or Dr. Tang were the oldest, we're talking maybe they were like 32. We're very, very young company.
I remember when I joined, I'm not going to say I remember. I think I remember the average age of the owner was like 34.
Yeah.
It's not that anymore.
No.
Oh my God, I'm almost 34.
It's actually not, like, relatively speaking, it's higher than it was, but it's really still pretty young.
Yeah.
And I think it would be funny when we go to different, oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank, but like any sort of conference, that type of thing. And they were like, you guys are, this is it?
Represent.
That's right. But so it was new to us to have partners join that the practice wasn't a de novo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We were not used to that and very leery about it because we're like, what? Are we sure? Are we not buying someone else's problem? Like, we really just didn't know. And at first it was something that as a company, we all felt very, we all took ownership in every practice that joined. Because, even though they're different names, different ownerships, we all felt like it represented us. So we felt a lot more entitled to have opinions. And our opinion was that this was scary.
Yeah.
But we saw that it worked. And so we were like, well, this is kind of cool. And actually, because of that, that was where kind of how I acquired Bridge City.
Mm-hmm.
We started thinking maybe we could buy second generation offices. We didn't have to have brand new de novos everywhere we went. But anyway, so that was the first change that kind of was unsettling. Mm-hmm. And then we realized, okay, so maybe they're a little bit more expensive than a de novo, but that you get them a lot quicker because you just have to, buy them. And they cash flow really quickly. So that was a good thing. And I think that's where our growth really took off again.
Yeah.
At that point. And then shortly thereafter is when we started talking about, well, maybe we should go through a transaction. Yeah. And I think that none of us really thought that it would happen.
Yeah.
I think the numbers you didn't, I remember asking myself and everyone that was involved 100 times, why would they pay 10x or 12x or whatever it was? Why would that make sense for them?
Yeah.
And this is different than any other transaction, but Sentinel, they wanted to interview each one of us. I don't know if you guys knew that.
I did, yeah.
We actually, I don't remember the name, but we interviewed, there was one other group, I think, that wanted to interview us too. And we were leaning towards Sentinel, but I remember doing interviews with both. I was super, super pregnant at the time with my oldest. So I remember being like, coming in and, I don't know, you just remember things like that. But sitting there and talking to them about.
And these were in-person interviews?
In person, each one of us.
Well, you gotta figure out, hey, we're gonna put some money into this organization. Yeah. It's all of these young dentists. Is this wise? And, it's really funny to think about it from the opposite side. And I love how everything came together and they realized not only is MB2 legit, but also the doctors are legit. We know what we're doing, or you guys know what you're doing. And hey, if we, private equity group Sentinel at that point in time, can come in and help to enhance it, gosh, this could really turn into something even bigger and better. And ultimately it did. But yeah, you got to protect that investment. You're investing in these doctors.
But what are they asking you?
They just asked, like, what do you do at the local level? How do you feel MB2 helps you? What do you like about MB2? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. For some weird reason, when they're asking you these questions, you feel like you're lying. I don't know why. I don't feel like you're just like so
these
put
trick
on this
questions.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, if somebody else says something a little different than me? Or are they going to say, we caught you? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's like coming and asking your friends. Okay, I'm going to ask you questions about your friends. Like, why are you friends with these people? Because I like them and we hang out and we have fun and I don't know what else you want me to say.
Yeah, it's a really weird situation.
I
to find
do
yourself
remember
in.
one of the questions was, do you have Dr. B's cell phone number if you need to text him? It's like, yes. So weird.
That would
I
seem
don't
kind of
know.
like a trick question.
I know. And then I'm like,
Do you want me
was
to
I-
recite it from memory?
Did I need to? Was I supposed to say yes? I don't know. Do you want me to show you my phone? I don't know.
Well, hey, you
But-
know what? I always tell prospective partners that we have not strayed from the roots that were like foundation that was set way back in the day. And today, every single partner still has Dr. B's cell phone number.
Well, and I think
I
you
love that.
hit a lot on the culture that you wanted to be a part of, this
Right.
younger dentists not leaving, stability, feeling like they're doing something right, and the camaraderie of investing in all of the dental practices and working with all of these doctors really closely, and how that vision is still intact, is the goal
For
of
sure.
dentists investing in dentists, this like community of clinicians.
For sure. I mean, that is by far the number one benefit, in my opinion, to MB2. I mean, you can feel very alone when you're practicing, especially if you're in a tertiary market, right?
Mhm.
You don't know anyone there. You just feel like, you know, anything that's happening, it only happened to you, that kind of thing, especially when things don't go well or you have some issue you don't right offhand know, how are we going to fix this problem? But I never felt that. I mean, you can call, I have 10 people I could call to say, hey, we're having this issue. What do I do? And immediately get someone to weigh in on at least an opinion or.
Prove it. Call them right now. I'm just kidding.
Do you want to see my cell phone?
Do you still have his
Yeah,
cell
like,
phone
what's their number?
number?
All right, I want to switch gears just for a second because you clearly have this entrepreneurial
Yeah, it's
mindset.
a crappy word.
It's a
isn't it?
hard word to
Yeah.
say. It's not a made up word, though. We haven't had any made word.
All words are made up.
Okay, well, I guess at some point they are. So this mindset that you've had, you started these offices. Clearly, you saw something in the organization and that drew you here,
Right.
and you learned a bunch. And now you've gotten into car washes. Like, tell us how did that come about?
Well, when my husband's an electrical engineer.
I was going to say, before we go into that, can you tell us a story of how you met your husband?
Oh, yes. I would love to tell you that story.
I bet he would love to too.
So, I was filling in for Dr. Swan, like we talked about, at the Beach Street location. And at the time, I think maybe, I don't know if it was something that happened in one of the MB2 offices, but for whatever reason, we knew that it was probably a good idea that there were some security cameras at every location just to make sure.
Is this that summer 2011 after you graduated?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So they had the IT team go out and install security cameras at every location. Now, this particular day, Dr. Parks was out of town and I was opening this office, which I mean, I'm like 24, 25 years old. I feel like a big deal.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
I am going to open Beach Street location. So I go, I borrowed his key. I'm about to key in and I realize the door's unlocked. And I'm like, this is weird. And I wasn't scared, but I was kind of like, what is going on? So
Yeah.
I open the door and I see this guy on a ladder doing something. And I'm like, who are you? And he was like, he got off the ladder. By the way, he was wearing a shirt. He's super tall. And he was wearing a shirt that was made for somebody at least a foot shorter than him. I mean, it was very, very small. I don't know if it got dried too long. Something was happening with the shirt and it was very distracting. And so he gets off the ladder and he says, I'm Marinko from corporate. And I was like, no, I'm calling. I did not believe, I don't know. I was not believing this scenario. And so I called Dr. Swan. He said, oh, no, he's supposed to be there. He's installing, okay, fine. Nobody told me, but whatever.
Okay.
So I go on with my day, but that's the first time I met him.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like I mentioned with the Sage opening, since there was 4 in a row, they actually created a whole opening team, and they called them the A team. So the A team, there was different people. There was, an IT person, which is what Marinko was. He did all the computer stuff. There was Johnny Wynn, who did all the equipment type stuff. There was
Still doing it.
yeah. So basically, they had this team of everybody had their own thing that they did in each practice, but they would come and when you would open your practice, they even had like a team that went and helped look for like what pictures you were going to hang on the wall. I mean, they had everything
How cool.
figured out for you. So anyways, I was there for the Baytown opening, which was the first of those 4 of the Sages. And the A team they were all from Dallas for the most part. They came and they spent, I want to say, about 6 weeks down in the Houston area. Well, they wouldn't go back and forth because they had to work on the weekend some. They had to get stuff ready for, one practice would open, then a couple weeks later the next, couple weeks later the next. So they were constantly working. And if they did have a day off, you kind of felt bad for them because I'm like, are y'all just staying in the hotel or what are you guys doing? And they weren't from there. So I appointed myself as the social liaison.
I was going to say, that feels like a recurring theme here.
Yes.
To help the A team have a good social experience while in the Houston area. So I would plan these events for them that I felt that they needed to be a part of. And Marinko would be at the events. And I started noticing that he would sit by me every single event. And anyways, that's kind of how it all started. But
I feel like you skipped over all the best parts, but I'll allow it.
But
and he just never stopped sitting by you.
Yeah, that's kind of really how it started.
Wait, how do shirts fit nowadays? Do they fit
much better
properly?
I pick them out.
Okay.
I buy the right size.
Fair enough. I think we all have that shirt or a couple of shirts that, one, you either don't want to get rid of, or two, you like, but you don't necessarily care that people see you, that it's short, it's long, it's big, it's whatever it might be. I think we've all got those.
If you're 6'3", I don't care how thin you are. You are not a medium, okay? It is just a length. It's a proportion issue. So, I mean.
So you and Marinko fall in love. His shirts fit.
Yes.
You start a beautiful family.
Thank you.
See, Sarah's the one that keeps us on track here, clearly.
Yeah, if I got to hear about your weird wardrobe anymore, I'm going to lose it.
Why is my wardrobe weird?
So, car washes.
Okay. So, he is an electrical engineer.
Mm-hmm.
He is also a big car guy. Always has been. Loved them his whole life. And so we go through an automated car wash. And I mean, he normally, before this, would never let you do that because he had in his mind that they could damage your car, that kind of thing. But he started realizing how cool this is from an electrical engineer perspective.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Is that not what you're looking at?
Yeah. But he said, so I say, we should look into this. Like, this is kind of cool. And he was really geeking out over how cool all this equipment was. He's like, do you think whoever owns this will let me go look in the back room? I want to see how this is, like, how everything runs, whatever. So I'm like, I don't know. I guess you can ask, right? So we get probably the nicest person ever to make you want to open a car wash even more. And I mean, he just loved it. So we started looking into companies and kind of how you do this. Well, oddly enough, this is right around when MB2 is selling to Sentinel. Well, Sentinel had a partner, Sunny's car wash system.
Oh, that's cool.
That they had just acquired right before us. So Sentinel had kind of a contact. So they helped us get in touch with the Sunny's people, which is, they're a car wash manufacturer, which basically they just sell all the equipment. It'd be like if you wanted to open a dental practice and someone says, hey, I have a really good contact at Henry Scheiner Patterson.
Sure.
Same difference. But they took us on a tour. They showed us all sorts of things.
Oh, that's awesome.
Marinko went to car wash college. They call it that for real. And he spent a week just learning.
I'm so sorry. For real?
For real.
Nobody else reacted to that. Okay, continue.
Yep. He spent a week at car wash college. And so we were all in. I mean, we really loved it. We toured over 500 car washes in the U.S. It's crazy. But we knew exactly kind of after seeing them all what we wanted, how we wanted to do it. And
that is the nerdiest shit I've ever heard in my life.
That's awesome, though.
He went to a
cool.
We're not going to do this halfway. We're going to do it.
He's gone to car wash college. They're usually a week long each. He's gone to a few of them. There's a few different, there's ones that focus on different subjects. So,
obviously.
Yeah. I mean.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Icon.
Oh, well, okay. We can't end this podcast without talking about sailing.
Sail.
So, tell us about sailing. Is this something that you did growing up? Is this
Yeah.
okay?
So really, it's kind of a not too interesting of a story how it started, but my mom wanted to sign me up for a summer camp. I guess she heard from a friend that if you go away to sleepaway camp, you're a better person. I don't really know
Yes.
for all those different
Sleepaway
reasons.
camp equals morality. for
That's
sure.
right. That's right. And so me and my brother both got signed up for different camps. Now, my camp was amazing. My brother's not so much. He got sent to a Texas Catholic boys camp,
Oh, God.
and it was very regimented, and like they had to wear like a uniform at camp. I don't know. Mine was super, super fun. My mom had no idea, but it was a sailing camp. And
Oh.
so she just
I love
knew
that.
it was
We're going to send you to camp. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I think you're going to have fun. That's cool.
wild.
Yeah. And I, as a family, and still to this day, I feel like I've always loved the ocean, beach. I'm just a beach person. And
Yeah.
so I absolutely loved it and then got really into sailing because of that camp.
That is so cool.
Yeah. And it's kind of a niche sport, if you will.
Yeah.
But I really got into racing, did a lot of racing clinics, was a part of lots of different regattas that would go on locally. And so
Oh, yes, the regattas.
really,
That's cool. I was in San Francisco one time and they were doing, I guess, the regatta there in the bay. And it was so, like, I was in a high rise and we could see it. And it was so cool.
it is cool. And
That
if
is
you
a
have,
I mean,
Random hobby. I love
scary,
it.
scary as all get out, but cool.
what's funny is when you're like a teenager and you have no fear,
Oh,
that
yeah.
was me. I didn't care if I fell off or if I capsized the boat, could not
Yep.
care. I mean, didn't bother me. Now I'm like, some of the things we did was that sounds dangerous.
That's
And I
dangerous.
know.
I'm not putting my kids in sailing camp.
I know, but we really did. I mean, I don't know. It worked, and it's a really neat sport.
Yeah, that's cool.
This was fun. Thank you for coming out and doing this. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that we didn't touch on?
Not that I can think of.
Well, it's been cool. There's a lot of original MB2 stories in there that I haven't heard, so I'm glad I got to be a part of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like we could probably go on and on and on, and there's plenty left to be uncovered, I guess, maybe later. But Dr.
For
DeMarco, thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
All right, MB2 Undergrounders, we are closing this episode with our OG, or one of the OGs, Dr. DeMarco. Thanks for joining us. We will see you guys next time.
Sail.
Peace.